Working already. So welcome everybody to this session of the Opportunities Fair. We are now here with the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, and we have Dion and Dasha with us. So maybe if you can just briefly introduce yourselves before starting.
Thank you so much, Ina. It's of course a pleasure to be able to present the master's program in European and International Law at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. And I'm the coordinator of this master's program, also a lecturer in at least one of the courses. Yes, and with me is Dasha.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Dasha and I am a master's student at the European International Law program. Currently, I'm finishing my degree and I'm here to answer any of your questions. And later on, I will also say more in depth about the program.
Yeah. I'll just share I have some slides for you, very well prepared, I have to say. So let's see if I can still, yeah. So essentially, what I want to do today, I just want to run through, like, formalistically what we're talking about in our program, for who might it be interesting, and I might say a couple of things about like why it could be interesting for you to study in Amsterdam, and some of the side activities to the program. So and by the way, Ina is also studying in Amsterdam, right? She followed my course, but I think she's enrolled in the international technology law. So if you have any questions about that, you can ask Ina, of course, about this. So yeah. So why would you study European and international law at our university? Well, I think there are a couple of reasons, and I'm not going to compare with other universities because I frankly don't know, right? Because I didn't study at other universities. Actually, I did study European Union law at the University of Amsterdam, but that's like ages ago, so not so reliable anymore. Anyway, European International, I think what's interesting about this program is that's a one-year program. Of course, there's a bit of liberty, right, to extend and delay a bit. But in principle, it's a one-year program, and you will become both a generalist in European and international law, right? So it's not that you have to focus on either European or international law, you study both. And at the same time, you can become a specialist in a very specific field of law. And as I will show you later, there's a whole variety of courses you can pick to basically tailor your own interests. That can range from human rights to European Union law. We have a bunch of scholars who are really like specialized in the politics of international law. We have various courses in migration and refugee law, and we have some scholars who are specialized in environmental and climate change law. In addition to this, we also have scholars in our departments who are very much focused on technology law, an emerging field. So in a way, you can study basically the foundations of European and international law, and at the same time there's a lot of liberty for you to follow your interests. And I think that's what makes the program quite highly flexible and tailored to your own interest. And just to say a bit more about the type of lectures we have, I do think that compared to other programs, we want to really talk about law in society, and that sounds a bit like a cliche, right? Because I think most universities are profiling themselves as talking about focusing on law in society. Not only that, it's not only black letter law, but it's actually about what law does. But I think we really have, most of our lecturers have an interest in the functioning of law, not for interpreting law, not saying what is the right interpretation of the law, not only studying the books, but also see what's actually happening with the law in action, you could say. And in my program, for example, in my course, which is basically the introductory course of this master program, I really try to talk and discuss with my students about how various actors, let's say refugees or platforms like Airbnb or trade unions, try to mobilize European Union law in order to further their own interest or to pursue certain ideas. So we are not only talking about the law as it is in the books, but also how this is mobilized in society, or perhaps how you can mobilize this after your career, and also to study the dynamics of all of this. Some of my colleagues are much more interested in how the law is constructed. What are the politics behind the law? how does law actually work in society? And I think that's the focus of our program. If I have to sketch it in a couple of minutes, to become a bit more concrete, basically, our program consists of some compulsory courses, and one of them is European and International Law, which I'm teaching. We also have Transnational Human Rights and Globalization as a compulsory course. You also have to do a bit of legal methodology that's mostly focused on how to write your master thesis at the end. And of course, you have to write a thesis. Maybe Dasha can later tell a bit, perhaps if she wants to, about her own thesis project she's working on now. And then you have quite some liberty to choose your own courses. So you have to pick at least one of these courses, which is Human Rights Protection in Europe, Irregular Migration, Competition Law, and International Weapons Law. And I'm just going through this. And then you have to choose at least one of these as well. EU Internal Market Law, EU Anti-Discrimination Law. If you're more interested in the law of war and peace, of course, with the current events taking place, with the war in Ukraine taking place at this point, you might be interested in international humanitarian law and obviously the politics of international law. And finally, if you're interested in international trade and investment law, we also have a course for you. But in addition to this, you can choose.
Are you
Yes.
changing the slides?
Sorry?
Are you changing the slides? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay,
Are you...
because we didn't see them.
Okay. You were staying at the first slide. And now?
One, yeah.
Do you see it now?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. So I was changing. Did you see this slide?
I don't think so.
Okay. That's a pity. Okay. Anyway, I'll just pick up where I was left. So maybe I can send you the slides so you can make them available on the platform. Maybe that's easiest,
that would be
right?
great.
Yeah. Okay. I was left at the electives, and this is an endless list of possibilities. Just to mention a few, we have blockchain law. We have some specialists in the field of blockchain. Private international law, if you're interested in consumer law, we have it as well. If you're interested in migration, with migration and legal remedies, and international labor law, and the list is essentially endless. So, and you can fill this up like your final 12 ECTS with those courses. If you want to do other things, we also have other opportunities. You can do an internship, you can study abroad if you want. We try to participate in moot courts if there is interest from students. You can edit a journal. And finally, if you're interested in doing a PhD, perhaps in the future, you might be interested in the research talent track, which really focuses on your research skills. So some advantages of our program, I would say, relatively speaking, we are a small and close group. We have a small and close group of students. I think this year there are between 30 and 36 students. I think there are about 34 following the program. So that's quite a small group. We have relatively accessible professors, right? Maybe Dasha can talk about this a bit later on, because it's hard for me to say how this is from a student perspective. But I think we're a nice bunch of lecturers overall. And I'm in charge of organizing some social events, including a trip to Luxembourg, where obviously the European Court of Justice was located. And I have to say, last year in November, that was a lot of fun, I have to say. This is a photo of last year. And finally, of course, you'll be studying in Amsterdam. One of the photos I took during the lockdown. Yes, I mean, I've lived here for 10 years now, and I'm very happy. And I think it's a city full of possibilities, very international city, not too big, not too small, a nice combination, I would say. And unfortunately, the campus of the Vrije Universiteit is perhaps not as pretty, but with a small ride with your bike, in 50 minutes you're in the center, and then you can enjoy the lovely scenes, especially in spring, I have to say. So yes, these are just some ideas. And then what about after your studies? Well, this is hard to say, because our graduates end up in a variety of places. But I think you really develop your legal skills, but you're also very suited to give policy advice or to do academic research. And you can, of course, start to work at corporations, law firms. Some of our graduates end up in courts, many actually in NGOs, right? Non-governmental organizations, research institutes. They become officials, at the European Union or in the ministries. Some end up in politics as assistants to politicians or as politicians themselves. And of course, you can become a lobbyist for various interests, right? Companies, or perhaps for some like public interests. So the list of possibilities is endless. It's not that our program really creates like one type of lawyer, right? In a way, you become the lawyer you want to become. Yes, I want to leave it with this actually. Oh, very important. This is very boring, but perhaps some of you might be interested. Like, what are the admission criteria? Essentially, if you have a law degree, a bachelor degree of law in law, it will be quite easy to get in as long as your university is qualified at the same level as Dutch universities. And I think for most universities in the European Union, that is the case. If you didn't do a law degree, it might still be possible to enter this program as long as you've done 60 ECTS credits in law, which are related to our program. So if they touch upon European law or international law or matters of constitutional law, and there's quite some flexibility in this. So these are just like the two central criteria, I suppose. If you have more questions, we can talk about it later on. So yeah, that's it for me right now. So maybe I can hand over to Dasha.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Dion. I guess I will continue from now on and tell more about my personal experience and my background. As Dion mentioned, the opportunities are basically endless. You can go in any way and pursue your passion. I graduated with a law degree from outside of the European Union, and getting here into master's degree, I would say my personal background was enough. But even if you didn't have a background in law, it's you shouldn't worry about this, because in, for example, European public international law, we talk about basics and have some courses that open for any students from any backgrounds. In our course, I would say the most fundamental was European and international law. I personally really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the atmosphere of a small group where you can always raise your voice and participate, and you also receive a personal feedback from the professor. If you have any question, you can reach the professor anytime, and he or she will be more than happy to help. I really enjoyed flexibility, that we only have 3 mandatory courses and the rest is you can choose. Maybe VU does not offer very extensive list, but at the same time, the university makes sure that it covers the most of the areas where you can find your interest and passion. I personally prefer to follow more human rights track. So throughout my degree, I was taking such courses as international humanitarian law, human rights and globalization, human rights protection in Europe, and very much enjoyed them. Again, all the professors create this atmosphere where you feel comfortable to be active in class and participate and say your own opinion. And regarding the master thesis, which is a very big chunk of your degree, I am working on it very actively right now. My master thesis about European Union sanctions policy. And I would say that it helped very much to in the beginning, of course, just to read a lot of papers and see what I'm interested in and work on thesis early. And also just reach out to professors you like the work of the professors, and don't be afraid to ask any questions. And I guess that's it in a nutshell. If you have any more questions, please let me know. Maybe I forgot something. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can help with the questions and just a bit to break the ice. About the admission, can you also cover more formal parts about the deadlines or the start of the program and maybe also the price?
Actually, I'm not so aware about the deadline. I think that actually it can be quite late. However, Dasha, you don't know either, right? So it's quite a specific question.
Yes, it is quite specific, but I know there are multiple deadlines. If you, for example, apply for scholarship, it's quite early. If you're non-EU students, it's another deadline, and if you're EU student, but I think it should be somewhere in May. Yeah, for the September intake, because the program has 2 intakes, September and February. So for September intake, I believe it's somewhere in May.
And I think it's actually like if you fulfill like the criteria, right? If you have let's say you have a degree in law, I think it can be quite flexible up until like in the summer if you're from within the European Union. What was your other question about the
tuition fee?
Tuition fee, yes. It's for EU students. It's 2,000, more or less 2,200 euros per academic year. Let's say after a year, you still want to extend your degree. For example, you're still working on your thesis. Essentially, you're able to pay per month. So it comes down to around 200 euros per month, more or less. And then when you, let's say, in October, November, you say like, okay, I'm quitting. I finished my degree. Then basically you get a refund for it, and you only pay for those months. So I think that's within the system that's quite nicely done. So that's in terms of payments. From outside the European Union, actually, what's the price? I don't know by heart. Maybe that's you know.
I do. So for non-EU students, I believe it's 16,000 euro per year. Yeah. And if I may add, I just found the application deadline. So the application deadline for non-EU students is April 1st, and the application student deadline for EU students, June 1st.
June 1st. So you have a bit of time indeed to make your choice. Yes.
Can you tell us more about the scholarships?
Yes, sure. So, but I can only tell about scholarship for non-EU students. So as a non-EU student, I was eligible for these scholarships. And actually, VU offers quite a variety of them. There is a VU fellowship program, and there is a Holland scholarship program. VU fellowship program covers the entire the first year of your degree, but master's degree is 1 year. So, but it can be extended to the second year as well in some circumstances, and it covers the tuition fee, so you don't pay for your degree. And additional Holland scholarship program, they contribute to living costs of students in Amsterdam and pay you 5,000 euro, and I think right now they also have a possibility of 10,000 euro. It's a one-time payment, which can definitely help with living in Amsterdam. But the deadline for scholarship is very early. I believe it's December it's somewhere in winter. I think maybe January or December. I know it's early, and in addition to your normal package of documents, you also need to provide with motivation letter with 2 letters of recommendation, CV. I think this might be it. Yeah.
When it comes to non-EU, EU students, actually the opportunities are fairly limited. There are essentially none. Or you have to bring your own scholarship. That's of course a possibility. What I did when I did my master's in the UK back in the days. What is a possibility though is to make kind of use of your free movement rights. And let's say you take up a job for, let's say, 8 hours a week in Amsterdam, and then you can also rely on study finance, Dutch study finance. But that's an opportunity that you might consider as well. So, but I'm not aware of like specific scholarships for EU students. They're mostly focused on non-EU students in order to cover these really high fees, right? So I think most of you are, by the look of it, Spanish, right? So yeah.
Speaking of Amsterdam, can you, Dasha, maybe tell us about your experience?
Yes, so I would say for me, I come from quite a big city. I come from Moscow, and moving to Amsterdam was a very interesting experience in terms of, again, the size. Dion said that Amsterdam is not too big, not too small. It was still smaller than my hometown, but I still very much enjoyed exploring it, especially getting on my bike and cycling through the Amsterdam streets, canals, and honestly, if I could give one advice, just get your bike as soon as possible, and you can get anywhere in Netherlands. It's a very bike-friendly country, and especially the cost of public transport also will save you quite a bit of money if you decide to cycle. And the only thing I would say to embrace and prepare is the weather. I would say for me, it was not such a big issue coming from quite a cold country, but definitely bring your rain jacket and and just be prepared for the weather during the day can change from wind, rain, sun, just in a day. And Amsterdam is very life and city. There's something always going on. It can be a public event, and can be as simple as just cafe, restaurants, especially now with the summer and with the COVID restrictions easing down. It's really great to see how it's all going back to normal, and people just going out and enjoying the weather, and yeah, the atmosphere. The atmosphere is great.
Yeah, I definitely confirm about the weather. I'm sorry, but for Spanish people, it would be a bit difficult. Also, the cultural offer is great. There are so many museums and like, but one of the problems may be the dormitory. Not sure if you can talk about it.
Yes. So I think you also heard that housing is a big issue for not only for Amsterdam, for the Netherlands in general. I myself did not VU offer the services for students to provide with accommodation. As far as I know, you pay one-time fee, which is €500, and you fill out a small form in what price range you're looking for accommodation, and some information, basic information, and the VU will contact you later and offer some options from which you can choose. Here, I would say apply for it as early as possible, because VU has policy first pay, first served, which means the earlier you pay, the earlier you will get your options, and of course you'll have more to choose from. If you decide not to use VU services, that's what I did. It was painful, to say the least, to look through multiple websites, groups, texting, chatting to people, and trying to secure accommodation. But it's definitely doable. I will say even more. I found mine on Facebook Marketplace. I know there's a lot of rumors going on that there are scams and stuff like that. And I know it's true, but again, it is possible. And so, yeah, I live in independent accommodation, not a student. So I don't have much experience. Yeah, again, I can't say about living with like other students on student accommodation, but definitely think about this early.
No, definitely. I mean, that's definitely one of the challenges of studying in Amsterdam. And I think, yeah, that's definitely an early warning is definitely yeah, in place in this case. I mean, there's housing crisis in like many capitals in Europe, right? But in Amsterdam, it's very pressing, I would say. So if you are in a, if you're in a position to apply for housing via the university, I think that's a very nice service, because that's a service that's not offered to Dutch students, for example. So you can take your advantage with that. Ina, are you university accommodation or via university or not?
No, I did the same as Dasha.
Okay.
Done my own.
Yeah. So it is possible, but it's
yeah.
it's difficult. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And talking about the university services, can you also talk about the offer, like language courses or sports or cultural activities?
Dasha, you want to say something or?
Oh, sorry. In terms of language, to be honest, throughout the program, I was not very active in extracurricular activities besides studies, but I do know that VU, first of all, VU has like a sports center, which offers very nice like programs like yoga, sports, dances, any range. I know that my friend participates in university's choir. They have the choir and where they, and VU offers a lot, but again, I can't say much because I personally did not take part in it in this. Maybe Dion knows more.
Yeah, I think I can say so, like a bit, because, but again, and I'm not much participating in it myself. I mean, there's quite a variety of sports organized via the University Sports Center. Actually, I used to be part of the cycling team, the university cycling team. So when I was still a PhD student, not anymore, now I'm too old. But that was basically organized via the VU. And there's quite a high quality facilities near Uilenstede, so like quite near to the VU. There are quite high quality facilities. Actually, on the very campus, there are volleyball fields, there's a gym, so that's all being offered. In terms of, I think there's also a VU cultural center where they organize theater plays, and I think there's even like a cinema affiliated to the VU. So there is a lot of on offer if you're interested. And in terms of extra service, perhaps I should say something that there is quite extensive support as well in terms of university psychiatrists and student advice. So that we have all those opportunities in place. Support structures in place. Again, I cannot talk about experiences because as an employee, it's different for me, but we have all those services. And that's the first thing as well. If you arrive in Amsterdam, if you arrive at a university during the introduction weeks, the first person you're going to meet are student advisors who will point you at all these support structures as well. So these are a couple of things I could say about this. Yeah.
Any of the audience has a question, you can raise your hand or write it in the chat. If not, I will continue with my questions.
You have a lot of questions, Ida.
Yeah, can you explain about the possibility for doing 2 masters at the same time?
I can. What I can say is that it's quite challenging. At the same time, if you are interested in, okay, let's put it this way. You can also go for, let's say, 1 master's degree spread out over 2 years, right? That's a possibility at other universities. What you can do here, for example, is like if, let's say, you're interested in international technology law or international migration and refugee law, but also in European international law, you can essentially follow both programs. You can basically eliminate on both sides the electives. And so basically you'll get 2 specializations for the price of 1. It does mean, though, that you have to follow the compulsory courses for both programs. And you also have to write 2 theses. And of course, writing 2 theses is quite a challenging affair. But if you're interested in research, then that's definitely doable. So I have 1 student now writing her thesis with me, and she's also doing international migration and refugee law. And I think she will just spend like 1.5 years or perhaps 2 years for both degrees. Yeah, so it's a possibility. It's not undoable at all. Actually, we also encourage it. However, you will have to write 2 theses. I think a couple of years ago, it was still possible to write 1 very lengthy thesis. But no, that's not a possibility anymore. Yeah.
Anyone has a question?
I can say, by the way, something we forgot to say is like what's kind of the composition of the group. What I can say from the European International Law students, I think we have about like 35 students. And it's quite diverse, but I would say it's like half of them are Dutchies, right? So natives, and then we have indeed half are international students. Quite international, I would say, right? So both from within the European Union and from outside the European Union. So it's a nice mix of students, I would say. Yeah.
This depends also on the year or also on the degree, because for example, in technology law, we are mainly from abroad and very
Yeah.
Dutch. So.
Few Dutch students in the international. Yeah. And international technology law is, I think there are more students, right? About 90 or so.
Yeah, we're quite a lot.
Yeah. So, if there are any questions, please do ask, or maybe I can also ask questions to the students. Of course, I also like asking questions.
Say something about career development, like internships, or afterwards finding a job.
Yeah. What I can say is that okay, that's highly specific, right? So I cannot say anything in general about like career development. What I can say though is if you have a degree in European international law, you're highly flexible in the type of work you're going to do, right? It's not that if you do career in criminal law, it's kind of you know where you might end up, either in a prosecution office or perhaps as a criminal lawyer, right? If you do European international law, I mean, the world is basically available for you to do whatever you want. However, most students are interested in working for NGOs, for example, or indeed like in policy oriented careers, positions. I have a student, for example, who is now doing an internship, a traineeship at the European Commission, and another student who's doing a traineeship, like internship at a law firm. So all these possibilities are open. What I would recommend you to do if you're interested in like in a speedy career, like if you want to go directly after your master's, you want to go and full ahead, then it might be interesting to do an internship during your master's. Really try your best, get acquainted with the company or the organization, and then take it as a stepping stone to move ahead. Because in my experience, it can sometimes. Now we're basically in a labor market in which almost anyone can find a job, right? However, the question is like, if you, at least in the Netherlands, right, this is the case. However, you want to do a job which is actually you find interesting and inspiring, right? So then it might require a bit more effort. Some students are indeed struggling to find their way afterwards because the jobs at the NGOs or the international organizations, they are not up for grasp, right? So an internship might help there, and trying is sometimes recommended. However, in my experience, most of the students I am still in touch with, they end up in places they actually wanted to, but sometimes it can take a while, right? And that's sometimes a bit challenging. So yeah. It's very difficult to answer this question because it's so individual, right? How your career progresses. So yeah. But doing an internship is definitely something I would recommend to do.
I don't have any more questions. Let's maybe wait for one more minute to see if anyone else wants to add anything. And if not, the contact details are on the virtual stand in the internet, so I guess they can contact you.
You can always contact me, by the way. I'll put my name also in the chat. So if you have any questions, specific questions, then I can always answer them at a later point. Questions about admissions, etc. So yeah, or how life is in Amsterdam. Dasha can also answer it, or Ina, you of course as well. So yeah, put it now in the chat.
Maybe if you want to say some final words.
Sorry, but
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe we can just wrap it up if you want to say a few final words.
yes, of course. Yeah. So once more, like to as a small summary of what we said, if you want to follow a degree in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, which basically allows you to study both European and international law, and at the same time allows you to specialize in basically your own interests, I think the VU is a very welcoming place to do so, with a very nice, generally speaking, actually in my experience, a very nice crowd of students with many social activities. For next year, I'm again planning the trip to Luxembourg. So, for example, so yeah, I think it's a nice place to be. So I would be very happy to welcome you in Amsterdam. So yeah, maybe Dasha, you want to wrap up as well?
Yeah, sure. So I would just like to say that my degree is coming to an end, but I very much enjoyed studying in Amsterdam, and studying especially at VU. I had a lot of fun and met so many amazing students. And yeah, so if you would like to spend the year or so in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, I think yeah, you will very much enjoy VU.
Yeah, second to all of this. And thank you very much for being here with us and for explaining everything. And yeah, for the rest of the members, I will see you later in the other sessions or maybe in Amsterdam. And
Exactly.
have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.